Hi, I'm Sandy Schroeck for LBR Educates, and today we're going to be creating a large-scale event centerpiece. The mechanics are one of the keys to being successful at creating these designs. My recommendation is to start off with a designer brick or a grande brick as the base, and depending on the size of the arrangement that you're going to make, we use a loamy tray on the bottom and come in, and then if you do need to make it higher, you can stack these or stack two designer bricks. But if you're going to stack them, you need to add a barrier in between, like a layer of plastic or another loamy tray, so that the top brick doesn't drain into the bottom brick. And beyond that, because there's a lot of stems inserted, lots of times we use lots of hydrangeas, which have those larger stems. So I do use a chicken wire application over the top of this, and my preference on the chicken wire is actually a plastic coated chicken wire, and it's a 24-inch chicken wire that's plastic coated, and it comes from one of the home stores, and a little bit less dangerous on your hands and clothes, but so you can see that I'm just coming in and kind of wrapping this like a present. The next step is to tape off the container, and you want to adhere the tape to the tape. So I'm going to come and catch those ends around my container and do that a second time. Then when I drop this into the water, for sure my tape is going to stay adhered and it's going to travel. This is going to form a strong mechanical structure to be able to create those big designs in, so that they travel well in trucks and that they'll stay together with the strength that's added by the chicken wire. So now that we have the foam prepared, the next step is to take it and drop it into a bin that's filled with water, and you allow that foam to sink down into the water and absorb all the way into the middle. You'll start getting used to how heavy they are, and if you pull it out and it feels lightweight, you might have an airlock in the middle. In that case, I would come in and just do a little butterfly twist with my knife and then put it back into the water to be able to release that air bubble that could potentially be trapped inside these big bricks. So I use a turntable on top of a bucket to be able to create the composition on. We've prepared our hydrangeas. When they came in, we took off some of the largest leaves and allowed them to sit out at room temperature for a number of days to be able to open up a little bit more. I see lots of conversations about the lasting ability of hydrangeas, and some of the biggest tips is to make sure that your buckets are clean. So clean your buckets with DCD, and then take off a couple of the larger leaves because they transpire a lot of water. If you do that, the water will go to the head, and then we also spray our hydrangeas with finishing touch on arrival. That's kind of a moisturizer that'll go into the flower. So here you can see the start of that design. The next big key is to do a good deep insertion into that design. So you can see on here, I've made a cut on the bottom, but that stem was as long as this, so it's really going down way into the meat of the foam. So I'm going to come here and do the two there, setting the shape, and then you kind of hold up the next one determine the length. And the next 3 are going to come in a triangle pattern. I have 2 through the middle and then 3 in, and then I'm going to set my side dimensions. Lots of times I'll use my hands and arms when I'm making multiples of these. So I take a look, that's as tall as my wrist. And if you measure out from the foam, out as long as my wrist. And then the side pieces are gonna normally come out, like I'll put my finger to the stem there and then come out. But get that good deep insertion in, and so you can see that way that's gonna form that orb. As we continue, if you just take your hydrangea out and hold it, then you can see what the target area is into the foam. Sometimes they have large nodules on there. You want to clean that off so that you're able to get that good insertion. Now I come in with my 2 hands and measure that I'm even on both sides, and then I'm going to come in and do the other 2 sides. So my shape gets set with the 2 at the top, then the 3, then the 4 at the bottom. Then you start filling in between those pieces with the additional hydrangeas. All right, so next we're going to start putting in some of our other components. Leather leaf would be something I would put in now, a little bit into the middle and a little bit down on the edges. But I do want you to be able to see where I'm making these insertions. So I'm not going to, for demonstration purposes, put that in right now so that you're able to see more clearly where I'm putting in the insertions. So as you're going along, you can see that this is forming a great rounded shape. Thinking about the different textural elements that are in here. I'm also adding some carnations in that I'm actually pulling apart a little bit and ripping the calyx. So I had prepared some of those other ones, but to get a little bit larger presence on this, looking kind of going for an updated fresh green look. And this orb would be placed on a shorter vase, but if you're using a really tall vase, a lot of floral materials up into this area, you can just do foliages up on top here and keep your florals more down in the edge here. So I've saved my roses a little bit more to the end here because these are some of the most expensive, and I want them to be right at the eye level of the guests, and so that they see the roses are very present. Here we've got some mondial roses, and I've had them out opening for a couple days, but I also can spin them a little bit when they're room temperature. Blow into them so that you can get a larger presence on those as well. Okay, so now I am going to stop and add some of the foliage elements and just come in. So just know that rather than have to reach to all the flowers, I would have added a little bit of Floral and a little bit of the Hydrangea leather leaf in early on. So then right now I would just be coming in and filling in the spaces. So we'll go ahead and add some of that foliage right now. I think you guys get a really good idea of the insertion placement. And so just coming in now on the leather, you can see I'm keeping some longer pieces and coming in with it sideways. There's really good coverage. I did mention that I'm using the Hydrangea leather leaf. That gives me a little bit more life on the leather, and is my preference to use, but I really like the textural element that it adds in and how fast and easy it goes into the composition. So you're really the most concerned about what the view is from down below. So you need to be paying attention on here. I've kind of used a shorter bucket, but normally I would use a little bit taller bucket so that I really am thinking about what the view is of the customer all the way through with all my flower placement. So here you can see the more traditional orb shape, and we've updated the look a little bit by using that fresh green in with the white. A little bit different than the blushes that we're seeing everywhere. Green is really on the rise, and so I think adding in those dark rich foliages and adding in that green, different shades of textural elements. So we're just going to kick this up one more notch. So here you can see our completed design. That's that variety of textures and movement. Adding those extra draping foliages really brought it alive. And that fresh green look and the white combination, I think, is really going to be something that's going to start trending. And with the dark green foliages and just that pop of extra color that kind of elevates it to a different level when you're at a wedding or event. So next we're going to take a look at installing it at the venue. And so now we're ready for installation at the venue. So we have a glass vase. This is a 20-inch glass vase. I would really recommend more of a 24-inch so that you have, with the downward presence on your designs, that they're out of the viewing zone of the person sitting at the table. So you could use a pedestal, larger urns, or a variety of materials. once I did finish that design, I sprayed it with finishing touch, and we start making those designs on Wednesday or Thursday for a Saturday event. But we water them every morning and then spray them down with finishing touch twice a day too, so that they are able to continue to be hydrated. When you're putting it on to a glass vase, you have a couple options. So one trick that I like to do is actually to use a black loamy to put the clear one in, because remember we have that tape underneath. So you can do that to be able to have a clean surface that the customer is looking up at. Or you can do something like aspidistra in the bottom of a second loamy, so that they would look up and just see green as well. So we're going to come in and we're going to set the glass on the tables and then come in and add our centerpieces. So we do save a couple flowers and foliages to add into the base of the container. So some of those things, when they're downward presents, they won't make the trip. So we're going to add a couple of these roses that are going to be right down into the faces. So here's our completed event centerpiece. And you can see we started off in that simple orb shape, but by adding all these different textural elements and the foliages that really extended those looks, you can create more of a garden style design that's a little bit more updated for your customers. Little different palette, using that fresh green and dark green to really enhance that color palette and pull it together. So I hope you can take these tips and techniques and create some fabulous florals. I'm Sandy Schroeck for LBR Educates.